Hello and welcome everyone. Bienvenidos. Happy New Year. Can you believe that we're in 2025? Wow. Incredible. My name is Beth Maranzini, and I am the Madam Chair of the Prospanica National Latina Track. And I'm so excited today to bring our first webinar in 2025, Entre Amigas, to focus on a very important topic, which is the power of mentorship. I am excited to be here with you, and I really want to thank Goya because they are our sponsors tonight. And we want to thank them for supporting and sponsoring our first webinar from the Latina track in 2025. What a great honor for them and us as well. I also want to add that the Prospanica Latina Track Committee, and I want to give a shout out to all my committee members, all the committee members out there. I know there are probably in the chat very active right now because they put time and help organize this exciting webinar to dive into this topic in celebration of the National Mentorship Month, which is so important. We want to highlight during this webinar the vital role that mentorship plays not only on your professional, but also in your careers and also in your academic development. And we'll dive a little bit further to add some clarity based on experiences on the importance of mentorship. We want to also emphasize the importance of fostering connections where experienced individuals will guide and support the growth of others. And we want to applaud those who today are mentors to others, right? Because we pay it forward that way. This month celebrates a transformative impact of the mentorship in empowering individuals, enhancing their skill sets, and opening doors to new opportunities. And with that, I just want to introduce our speakers today. And I am so honored that one of the speakers here is a mentor of mine. It's I translate mentor to madrina. So I'd like to introduce Phyllis Barajas. I'd like to introduce Daisy Maldonado and Raquel Raker. Welcome, ladies, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Being part of this panel and our first Latina track webinar, Entre Amigas, the power of mentorship. With that, I would like to start with Daisy. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, and, we just want to learn a little bit more about, why are you here? Why are you speaking about this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So nice to be here. I'm so excited about this and being able to use my platform and voice for such an important topic. I'm a Brooklyn-based writer with 5 years of experience covering lifestyle, and I have written on topics such as the scarcity of Latina mentorship programs. It's something that's very close and near and dear to my heart. So I've had the honor of speaking to so many different mentorship programs who are working to fill the gap and being able to serve as mentors to those who need it and who need the guidance. My work has been featured in Cosmopolitan, Refinery 29, and The Daily Beast. And I am an NYU alumna who has double majored in politics and English.
That's big. That's good. That's good. We need more Latinas like you. Next, I would like to introduce my very own mentor, Madrina, Phyllis Barajas. Please share with everyone your background. You are on mute, Madrina.
So I'll try to do it in 3 sentences, which is not easy for me. That just was one sentence. I have 2 sentences left. I founded a mentoring program 20 years ago. This is our 20th anniversary for Conexión, because I agree, we recognize that there was dearth of programs that are specifically addressing the growing Hispanic Latino demographic in the United States, as we all know, the second largest and youngest demographic in the country as the country is aging out. And we know how important mentorship is, as Daisy just pointed out, in terms of opening doors and making things happen in our careers. It doesn't happen by ourselves. It requires community. And we all know that Latinos are famous for investing in our own community and helping one another. So we built on our natural inclinations to make connections and created Conexión. And we have many, many wonderful mentors who are successful executives, some of whom are Latino and many of them who are not, surprisingly, who invest in the next generation of Latino leaders who are going to lead this country to sustain our prosperity for global leadership. And I'll say more as the program goes on, but also I've had the honor of watching Beth over 20 years and watching her advance in her career. And she's a great example of what can happen when you have the right connections. So very proud of you, Beth, as well. So back at you.
Thank you, Madrina. I appreciate it. And like you said, as we go into the dialogue, we'll interact a little bit more about how you helped me being my mentor, in not only my career, but also my the personal level as well, with everything that I've been doing as a volunteer, with nonprofits. So I would like to now pivot to Raquel Raygar. Can you please tell us a little bit about you as well?
Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I'm Raquel. I'm Orlando-based Puerto Rican journalist and author. I'm currently the director at Refinery 29 Somos, which is a platform by and for a Latina audience. My first book published, I can't say last year anymore, in December 2023. It's titled Self-Care for Latinas. I'm currently working on my second book, which is a memoir on friend grief. But much of my writing and reporting has focused on issues like Latina body politics. So things like looking at gender violence and reproductive justice, body image, and how these issues impact our communities. Exploring wellness and music and culture. And in addition to that, I have been a mentor. I've been doing this work for a really long time. I've been in the journalism game for more than 10 years, which is wild because how did I get so old so quickly? I've been a mentor for several years, part of different programs, and also hosting a Latinas in Media brunch, both when I lived in New York and now here that I'm back in Orlando.
Very nice, very nice. Well, I'm really excited, and thank you for your wonderful introductions. As you could see, our panelists are perfect for our topic today of the power of mentorship. So with that in mind, let's jump right into our, questions, where each one of you will have opportunity to share your insights, your nuggets, your pearls. And I want this to be sort of like a round table where, any of you can jump in, all of you can do it. It's a conversation entre amigas, right? So that's the way I want to approach this as a round table. So my first question is, what specific strategies can mentors use to help Latinas identify and pursue career advancement opportunities within their industry? So anyone can jump in, if you want to pass the question, that's fine. All of you can, okay, jump in. So who wants to start?
I'll start.
Thank you, Madrina.
As I said, Conexión has been around for 20 years. We've learned a lot about recruiting mentors and what mentors can do to help their mentees. And as I said, whether Latino or not, because even our Latino mentors, we also have to remember that there are age differences. So obviously mentors by virtue, and at least in our definition in Conexión, we define mentors as role models because they're people who are accomplished, who are a good example for the person that they're mentoring and so on. We also say that they're a sounding board and hopefully can become a trusted advisor. And I know that we talk about sponsors and we talk about mentors. We talk about our mentors being connectors because we're an external mentoring program. So the people that mentor in our program are going to mentor somebody who they don't work in the same company. So they're from a different company. But what mentors can do, there's a lot of things that mentors can do, but one of the things that's really, really important is to, because they can be a little bit intimidating. One of the traits of our Latin culture is that we're very deferential and respectful of our elders. And that sometimes in a mentoring relationship has come up every single year that people are a little hesitant to quote unquote, they don't want to bother their mentor. And we tell them it's your mentor is expecting you. So I just want everybody out there to know if you have a mentor or you want a mentor, please be sure and follow up with your mentor. They expect you to do that. And if they have to change an appointment, be sure and be there and be present. But what mentors can do is to be active listeners, to get to know your mentee. That's really important. Don't assume because they're younger that they may or may not know a whole lot. A lot of times they teach us a great deal. So as a mentor, it's very, very important for you to listen to your mentee, do active listening. Some of the other things is stay open to two-way learning because the perspective that your mentee has, whether you're because they're different gender, because of age, because maybe they're from a different industry or a different area, may see the world differently than you as a mentor. So in the very beginning, it's really, really important to try to be open to one another and listen and learn from one another. And I'll say more later, but that's just some of the things in the beginning that I think are really important, and be present with each other.
I
Great suggestions. Raquel?
I love that response, Phyllis, because it's also kind of where I was thinking. So one thing I do, so I host mentorship calls for Latinas who aspire to have careers in journalism or who are early in their journalistic careers. And I have my, sort of like office hours, the same, same time every Friday. And folks can sort of just like book that online through Calendly. And I work with, sometimes they're like one-off, just one-off calls, and like folks just have a question or a couple questions and I never hear from them again. Or sometimes it's like something that we do monthly, or just at a regular cadence. We tap in seasonally. But one thing that I require in those calls is confidentiality, right?
Mhm.
Because for me, it's really important, especially, I can only speak to this industry, but it's a very tough industry. I think it's not very stable, and it can feel very chaotic, and even more so, I think, for marginalized voices who
Yep.
are often the first to be let go. And so I am often very, very honest about my experience. And I appreciate when folks, feel like they have a safe space to also share their grievances and their experiences with microaggressions. And, I think it's really important for us to be very honest with one another in order for the conversations to be effective and helpful. But that requires this sort of understanding of confidentiality. Like, I have your back, you have mine. Let's work within these systems, right? That like were not built for us, and like let's shake things up together.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And Daisy, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I feel like I can speak to having been on both sides as both a mentee and a mentor. I'm very grateful that Raquel was actually one of my first mentors as I was breaking into the industry. And she served as that guiding voice for me, which was everything as someone who was still learning to navigate their career, especially in a field that is so predominantly white male centered. I think being able to speak to one who could understand the challenges and what that means in terms of leadership opportunities, promotions, and just navigating all the complexities that come within our industry was always really helpful. So I think that in having candid conversations with your mentor, whether you're on whatever side, it's really helpful and has proved to be effective in my life. And I've seen the effects of that worldwide.
Can I just add one more thing about the mentor role too? And we say this to our mentors. we think it's important to take this is our bias in Conexión, when you meet with your mentee, to take a strength-based approach. Because sometimes there's a tendency to, as the more senior person, to look at the younger, the protege, and sometimes imagine that, well, if they'd only do this or that. And part of what I think maturing into your career is you're going to try things, and some of them will work and some of them won't. Some of them will work 80%, 50%. That's okay. And as a mentor, we encourage our mentors to help them create a strength-based approach. You got it 50% right instead of 50% wrong. I mean, there's a different way. It's glass half full, half empty. But I think you touched on the marginalized voice. Really, how do you move out of that mindset? And for us, as if you're in the protege role or the mentee role, how do you help your mentee understand that you do have a place in the room? You belonged in that room. It's okay, and to take those risks. And also know that sometimes you might make a mistake, but sometimes you're going to be right too. So there. So as a mentor, yeah, I would encourage all the mentors out there, look at your mentee and think about glass half full, take a strength-based approach, and help them figure out how to take some risks.
Love all the strategies that you share, right? But here's the interesting fact that I just learned. So Phyllis has been my mentor and is the one that actually guided me to join Prospanica in 2011, the board for the New Jersey chapter, which I was hesitant. And she said to me, this is going to take a lot of time from you, but it's going to be one of the best career professional development move in your life. And she was right, okay, in many ways, and we'll continue to talk about that. But then Daisy and Raquel also were mentor and mentee. So wow, we didn't know that, but this is speak to the true testament of the power of mentorship that we're sharing, and we didn't know that until now, guys. The relationship amongst all of us. So yay, I'm really happy about the fact that you are on the panel, because it's a true testament to what we're predicating today. Okay, so let's move to the second questions if you guys are ready. And the second question is, what strategies can Latina mentees use to effectively communicate their goals and expectations to their mentors to ensure a productive relationship? And this is important because I will go back to my earlier, I guess, career time in my career. And my first mentor, I just joined the call without a plan, without what I wanted them to help me with. And oh my God, Madrina, you introduced me to Andres Tapia, who was the president of Diversity Inc. And it kind of didn't go the way it should have gone because I was never really prepared with the topics that I wanted help with. It was more like, oh, hi, how are you? Okay, what are we going to talk about today? So I'm going to preface by saying that this is important. Can any of you please provide some insight into this strategy to help Latinas be effective and communicating their goals that they won't need help from their mentors?
I think that can even start from being able to figure out how to name these goals. I think we as Latinas oftentimes struggle with putting it into words and saying what we want and navigating a roadmap to doing so. So I think that it starts with being able to build the groundwork and framework for what you want and coming prepared with those things in mind to discuss and further develop together.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
I agree. I think it's really important to come with questions, conversations that you want to explore. But I don't think you need to like know everything. I think that that's also what the conversation is for, right? So I think like the questions can help get us there. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? And so through that sort of mentorship, that's when it's like, oh, okay, like I learned this, like let's explore this other topic in a later conversation. So I think it's also like, yes, come prepared, but also know like 3 questions is fine. Like, you don't have to feel like you have to come with 20 questions and we have to get through everything in this, in this one call or in this one conversation, this one meetup. Yeah. So just coming prepared, yes, but also recognizing that you don't need to have everything, and that just this is an initial conversation, and it can definitely lead to more.
Yeah, and sometimes what happens, and of course everybody's different. I mean, we have over 500 people have been through the program, and so they're all different and different reasons. And I think it's really, really important to keep an open mind, even as the mentee. Yes, it's your career. Yes, it's your life. And sometimes the question you think you have is really not not the deeper issue that you need to work on. It's a symptom of something. And so you have to be willing to kind of dig a little deeper, ask the why questions. Well, why do you care? Or why do you do this? Or why is this important to you? Sometimes just asking yourself, well, why do I care? Well, why is this important to me? Maybe do a little bit of prep work before you meet with your mentor, and also be open with your mentor about, in some cases you do have a real clear, I really want to work on this. But even in those cases, I agree with both of you that you need to leave a little space to do a little bit of exploration, a little bit of more reflection. And sometimes it'll take time, and you might end up in a very different place than you thought, because that's what the beauty of having this hopefully trusted advisor in your life.
So true. And sometimes, like Raquel was mentioning, you don't need to have a full plan. I literally was in a team meeting 2 days ago where one of our colleagues shared about this young lady that was looking for a mentor, and what she was focusing on was a mentor that had experience, was a people leader, because she wanted to progress into her career and become a people leader. So again, you don't have to have all these full plans. She knew what she wanted to get advice on. So even if you just know that little piece, that can help you get and take advantage of the relationship with someone that has the skills that you're looking to improve and develop. All right. I really like this conversation, and I'm very passionate about mentorship. As you could tell, it helps. Um, Now, let me ask the next question, and that is, how can mentorship programs be structured strategically to support Latinas in developing leadership skills for long-term career growth? Anyone?
Well, I think this is a really important question, because I've spent the last 20 years trying to answer it. And I've seen it done well in some organizations not so well. And where it's done well, it's very, very clear that there are organizations where developing the full potentials of every individual in the organization, regardless of whether they're an individual contributor or the corner office and everything in between, is very much a part of the culture. And they might show that in any number of different ways. And I don't just mean celebrating holidays or, sort of and those are nice, and it's nice to do those things too. I'm not saying they don't have some place in your organization, but really where it's perceived as to get the most out. If you start at the end game, which is we want to really be a profitable organization, even as a nonprofit, I always say you want to be profitable. You want to have impact. You want to make a difference. You want to be effective in whatever it is, your service or product or whatever you're doing. So if you back it up, it matters how well your people feel that they are treated, because the better treated they feel, the more productive and profitable your organization is going to be. Okay, so far, so good. Then how are you treating your people? How are you treating them? Do you make them feel valued? Do you make them feel seen? One of my big things is I hate being invisible. And in some organizations, and I'm going to tell you a secret I don't tell very often, but almost every year we'll have some people in our program, almost every year, who are in the program who say, well, I think I'm only in the program because I'm a Latina. And then I have to say, no, you're not in the program because you're a Latina. You're in the program because you're talented, because somebody thought you were worth an investment. We're not a free program. But yet there wasn't anything in the culture. One woman said, she said, I've been here 5 years, and she said, nobody ever really paid attention to me. And I've been asking to go to leadership programs, and other people got to go, and I was never selected. And now this year, I got into Conexión. And I said, great, you're here now. And I gave her a very good mentor, and her mentor told her the same thing. But it took some of the shine away from being selected for this program. I said, these companies are they loathe to spend money on external programs. So the fact that somebody invested in you to go to an external program when they have their own internal training unit says something. I said, it's about you. I said, okay, so maybe they got some little gold star somewhere because they sent you. I don't know. But value the opportunity. So two things in that statement. One is they did not feel that she did not feel people like her were necessarily valued. How did that happen? Okay, the company needs to answer that question. So what are you doing to show that we value our employees, that we invest in our employees? How do you do that? What kind of alternative programming do you do for them to develop them over time? Okay, and then for those that do get to go to programs like Conexión or there's lots of other programs, whether it's a graduate program or whatever it may be. How do you and some of the better practices, the good practices that we've seen is they, on a regular basis, whether it's quarterly or whatever, in their newsletters, media, digital or whatever, will post, and here's what we're doing, because they feature their different efforts to develop their employees. They're proud of that. They let people know we invest in you, whether it's an internal program, external program, whatever it may be. So I think it's really important for companies to say, how are we behaving? Are we behaving in a way that shows that we see you, that you're not invisible? So I'll stop there because I could go on, but I won't.
All right. Any Daisy or Raquel?
Yeah, so this question was initially a little difficult for me just because I'm not a part of any like organization, right? Like a mentorship organization. A lot of what I do is more like one-on-one through various like programs or different ways that I meet aspiring writers. But I can say that I think what's important is in thinking about like the long game and building this sort of long-term relationship, mentor-mentee relationship, is really recognizing the entirety, right, of the mentee, right, and acknowledging that like this may start as sort of professional development, but of course we are human beings, and our professional lives are often impacted by what's going on in our personal lives, right? And so being open and ready for those conversations as well, right? So these conversations might start with, in my experience, learning what's your beat, like what it is you want to write about, or how to pitch, how to write a pitch, how to find an editor to pitch stories to. And then that might go into interviewing, and then when you land the job, maybe it's like a leadership and negotiating salaries, or maybe it's again like I have experienced this microaggression in the workplace, like how do I navigate that? And then some, maybe it's I'm a person who's grieving something in my life while still trying to build my career right now, or just all of the many different things that we experience, one as human beings, but also, particularly in the context of Latinas, right? Or even like, okay, I've established myself in this industry, and now I want to be a speaker, and now I want to write a book, right? So it's like that is the way that I think of sort of like this long-term mentorship relationship. But I think to get there, again, it's like being really candid and also recognizing this person as not just someone who is trying to build their career, but also someone who's trying to build their career while navigating all of the different issues and challenges that come with being human and also Latina in this country and in this time.
Yeah,
Anything you want to add, Daisy?
Yeah, what I was going to mention a little bit about is how I have seen through my research and also just on a personal level, mentorship programs being formatted and structured as either being one-on-one mentor, typical mentor-mentee relationship, and also peer-to-peer. And what I have found is the strength and community that that can bring. That can be someone who is maybe in the same position as you, who is the same age and same demographic. You know, mentor doesn't necessarily have to mean someone who is older than you.
Right.
It could be someone
Right.
who is building and navigating this with you and alongside you. So I've seen the benefits and seen that they both can work really well. And for a little bit of background of the one-on-one relationship that I have had with Raquel, I remember that we had connected through a Latina mentorship program that we found online for journalists. And during my first call with her, it was during COVID, and I had just graduated from NYU, and I was facing a really tough job market. And I remember that call, it was a mixture of emotions with me just being scared, anxious, lost. And I just really was open about that experience. And I remember just trying to have that conversation be a kind of point where I could grow from. And from there, every single year since, and continually, I have worked with Raquel both professionally and also been able to check in with her and personally. And that's been really great and lovely to see build.
I just
Oh,
want,
that's great.
yeah, I just want to piggyback on internal programs. One of the things that I would say for internal programs too is be clear. You guys maybe think of this, be clear about what the purpose of the program is, because sometimes that can derail and it's well intentioned. So some of the better practices where companies are making that investment, it's important when they do it well that they're clear about what's the purpose of the mentor program. Is it to develop a new area? Sometimes, a lot of companies where there's low turnover, they give people a chance to go into a different department, work in another area. So sometimes having mentoring programs where they have someone that really helps guide them in the new area, and it can open up opportunities in the company that maybe they don't go up, but they have a lateral opportunity to move that way in the company. So that's really, really important, because it can derail the program otherwise, because then people assume, correctly or incorrectly, that the purpose of the mentoring program is X, that kind of thing. So just something to be aware of if you're, involved in one of the in-house programs. But for external programs, I mean, you're absolutely right. The long game, we had a survey done last year by 7 letters, and they found in the survey that people called Conexión transformative and relationship oriented, because they said the program, we have a unique way of matching mentor and mentee, because that's what we do. And it's not just, if you're a banker, you get a banker for a mentor. If you're a doctor, you get a doctor. If you're an engineer, you get an engineer. Or store manager, you get a store manager. We match you as a person. So we look at you holistically, and then we match you with a mentor that is more aligned with your values, your goals, and aspirations. So I think that's when if you're as a mentee looking for someone to be your mentor, really stepping back and thinking of yourself more than just your job title is very, very important in terms of getting a better match. But we're very proud of the fact that when they did the survey, they said it's transformational and relationship oriented. So very important feature that mentorship can do when done well.
That's
So,
such a great note, Phyllis. So sorry, just have one more
That's
note.
right.
Daisy, first of all, how beautiful it has been to just like watch your career blossom, and like to the fact that we're actually on this panel together and did not know that in advance. Just like, look at God, look at us. But also I did want to note that what you said about peer mentorship, because that's what's actually been vital, like in my personal career trajectory. Unfortunately, I think I entered my industry at kind of a strange time, and I did not get the mentorship that I was hoping for from some of my managers and my elders. And so because of that, that's why I've become so passionate about doing this work, right? But while I did not get that from folks who maybe had been in the career a little longer than I have, I did find that within my peers, right? Because they were going through the same things that I was going through. And so we really leaned on each other and empowered one another and sort of work through the various challenges together. And that's also very, very powerful and very helpful and affirming.
Yeah.
Well, I will add something, a little bit of color into structuring a mentorship program. So I lead the mentorship program and the company that I work for, and I'm not speaking on their behalf, but yes, it's a healthcare company. And as part of the Somos BRG, I guess, BRG. So basically, I am so happy because for the first time in the history, we were able to match 78 mentees to mentors. And prior to that, we had a hard time getting mentors. It was extremely difficult, and we had mentees that we just have to postpone or we couldn't match, and we went on to the next cohort. But here's an insight that I wanted to share even with my madrina. For the first time in history, we were able to use AI to do the matching. And that it started with, we have a survey. We ask key questions to understand your personal preferences, skills that you have, and what your interests are. And then through AI, we have a person who was part of our mentorship cohort last time that became a leader in the BRD organization as a result as being part of our mentorship program. And he wrote this AI program to do the matching. It's incredible because nothing is manual, nothing is a guessing game. And we have criterias that we, implement for the AI to work. For example, we tell the AI we do not want people that are in the same area, because then you can be, have confidentiality or, be truthful to a certain extent. That's one matching criteria. The other matching criteria is we want the time zone to be the same, because you wouldn't want somebody in California with somebody in New York because the time difference is really big, right? So anyhow, I was so impressed. Madrina and team here, it was the push of a button. No longer checking, taking, and tying to match people. It was done. And when we didn't have enough mentor and we ended up getting more mentors, it didn't take us like a lot of time to be able to match those mentees that didn't have mentors because of this AI capability. So we do have extremely, and I see Lorena Mejia, who is part of our Somos leadership and somebody that I admire because of her fire and energy. She could testify. We have guidelines that we present during the kickoff to the mentors and mentees on what is expected, the definition of a mentor, what's a mentee, what's expected of them. We encourage the mentees to take the step to connect with the mentors, and some don't, and we literally follow up. And then one thing that we do through the entire mentorship program, like tomorrow, we're going to have our chief network officer come in. We have our CEO, the last for graduation, and she spoke about her journey and being mentored. So it's extremely structured. And then we do a survey. Did it work? Didn't it work? And I'm telling you, looking at my colleague Joseph, who wrote this AI program and who has been relentlessly putting a lot of energy into matching these mentors and mentee. He was a mentee and now he's a mentor and a leader. So it works. So it is important to have that structure. There is a question that is not here that I want to address, only because a lot of people come up to us and probably to you guys and they ask, well, how do I get a mentor? Especially our community is very shy. It's not a pre-planned question. This is something that I get asked constantly. So I wanted to ask that question and go pretty quickly through all of you, and then I'll give my input into how I got some mentors and how I got other mentors, because it varies, right? So I'm going to start. Daisy, do you want to just start there?
Yeah, definitely. I think mentorship to be quite candid, can be a bit like dating. You're going to find some bad mentors and you're going to find some really great ones that stick and land and actually help you blossom. For me, the way that I kind of navigated that was looking at on LinkedIn and seeing people who were in a role that I was hoping to emulate one day, or also just people whose work that I had closely followed. And I reached out via email or LinkedIn message. I've also sent a quick DM when applicable. So I think that it can be a mixture of seeking out these mentors, and that's by finding people who are really great at what they do and who you're hoping to connect with. I also think that it's by attending sessions like these. I've built such a great community by doing so, and it's been relationships that have just meant everything throughout my career.
Very good. Um,
I agree.
Raquel, you want to, yeah, go ahead, because and I know Phyllis have that connection, and I have another question for her, so I love for you to answer this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that strategy of looking at folks whose careers you sort of like admire, and reaching out to them. I'm always open to email, DM. I think there's so many mentorship programs that exist that we don't even realize. So even just taking to Google and like putting mentorship your industry. And yeah, I mean, even if you wanted to get really specific, I mean, some of these even exist and are catered specifically to Latinas, which is like really beautiful. So I mean, I've put together, stories. Daisy has too that are around like that are highlighting like mentorship programs and organizations specifically serving this audience. And I also think just like being in community, right? So, Daisy mentioned sessions like this, but also it could just be, the Latina walking meetup or, gathering for, hobbies or like a monthly brunch or just where you're meeting all kinds of people who are in very, just all kinds of careers doing different work, and learning from each other and just building actual relationships, and through those relationships like meeting other people that they might know. And it's just I feel like it's just like being in community with other people. I think, as Phyllis said this earlier, not necessarily like within your same industry, but still have a similar hunger and drive. Like you can learn and grow from that as well.
Excellent. And Madrina, how about you? I know you have spoke a little bit about Conexión, how you can get connected to Conexión, but I also really briefly, if you could also speak about like our experience. We literally just met at a conference, diversity conference, and I went up to you, and I don't know what's the word I'm looking for? What you saw in me to immediately, start the conversation and taking me under your wing and introducing me to, folks like Andres Tapia, like Dr. Rodriguez, speak about the two, right? Conexión and then that individual approach.
Yeah. No, I mean, I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm the daughter of Mexican immigrants, and in the time that I grew up, there weren't that many Mexicans in the Omaha or in the Midwest, but we were enough there to be our own little group. So I think this idea of always being the odd person out was always a part of my awareness, not in a bad way either. I mean, I don't know, I just thought I am who I am, and that was okay. So as I got older, and then I would go to different, in my career, I've been an educator, organizational development, and HR, those kinds of roles. So I was always in a people-centered, going back to the community, comunidad y familia, very important in my culture as well. And so wherever I go, and when I met Beth, it was at a conference. I was a learning manager at that conference, and I saw Beth, and you were one of the few. There were tons of Latinas there or Latinos at the conference. I mean, you and I stuck out a little bit, not so much, well, I guess because we obviously looked a little bit ethnic, let's be honest, at that conference. and your energy. I loved your energy. You were sparkly. You were young. I mean, I mean, you're still young. I mean, you're always going to be 20 years younger than me, no matter how old I get or how old you get. So you always be 20 years younger. Uh, but there was just something special about you. There was a certain energy that I was attracted to. And then as we spoke, you were going through some career deliberations, let's put it that way, at the time. And I mean, obviously, it was right up my alley. I'm an HR person, I'm an OD person, I'm about change. And so we had some conversations while you were there. So I felt like I could be helpful in some ways and so forth. And then I do believe in the power of making connections. And Andres and Robert are people that I, respect, and I've known them for a very long time. I've known Robert since forever, and Andres. And so it was one of those things where I just did what it just came naturally. I don't know. I mean, and now, of course, now I do it. It's more intentional. It's obviously, what Conexión is about. Conexión is named Conexión for that reason. We know how important connections are. And one of the things that we're trying to address is that we know that whenever you interview some important person, usually no disrespect to white males, I'm just saying the president of any company, the CEO of any company, and I want to thank, my mentor or my mentors. And when you interview women or, anybody else, very rarely do you find somebody who says, well, I had all these mentors along the way. And I realized that the only thing that was separating many of us from success, and I had worked at Harvard for a number of years, was having mentors. And I hope this doesn't offend people, but I started saying to myself when I was wondering what should I do, I'd say, now, what would a white guy do? And so I would say to myself, what would a white guy do? And I thought, well, they'd have a mentor. So when I worked in Washington for 5 years, I was a political appointee, and I learned a lot in that setting. Again, very few women, that kind of thing. So again, found our community. There was a group of, there were out of 1,850 appointees, there was only 140 of us that were of Latin heritage in that were appointees at that time. And we found each other. We would get together every Thursday at some Latino restaurant in DC, did that every Thursday. You never knew who was going to show up. You never knew there's going to be 5 of us or 15 of us or 20 of us or God knows how many. And we would just show up because no matter what department we worked in, we knew the power of community, because God help you if you're a political appointee. I don't care what stripe you are. It ain't easy. And if you're a woman, it ain't easy. So that power of community, peer to peer, what are you guys doing? Because we had no one else to ask. You're in the department, you're one of the few, and you're one of the political appointees, and people assume you have all this power. Yeah, I wish. And so we would talk to each other. So that peer-to-peer stuff is really important. So again, it just kept reinforcing, Beth, all these years. And she and I, somehow we always kept in each other's lives. We never stopped being in each other's lives. And so I would always come back and she would always come back and things would happen. And of course, my daughters live in New York City and Beth was working in New York City. So we just came back. So these, my own life and then my interactions with Beth, there was I was growing as a mentor, came back to Boston 20 years ago and realized that I couldn't stop doing what I was doing, that I had to do this. And so launched Conexión to make sure that people like yourselves, that we could do what we could. What good is it to have had a career that gave me the opportunity to meet so many people working at Harvard, working in the administration for 5 years and doing all that I did. So who cares unless you leverage those relationships and make those connections? And that's partly what I believe a mentor is about, is to really help you advance, help you grow, help you learn, be there for you when you have those dark moments. You think, I'm going crazy. No, you're not going crazy. It's a normal reaction. You're smart. They're crazy. So my mother used to say.
Thank you. That's awesome. So we do have some, I like to move us to my favorite part. There are questions that have been posted, and I would like to, give a chance to you to help me answer. So this is the part where we answer the questions. For those of you in the comment section, put your questions and we'll have these ladies and even myself, if we can, answer them live. The first question is, how do you ensure your mentor understands your specific industry or organizational context? And anybody?
I'll do a quickie. I just spoke to one of our alumni mentee yesterday for something else that we're doing, and she said to me, because she's a CFO now, she's done quite well. I'm very proud of her. She was in one of the early cohorts, maybe 15 years ago. And Scott and we were talked about this very question about Scott's not in the same industry as she is. And she said, Phyllis, what I would say is, she said, it's about situational leadership and about knowing those skills of a leader, regardless of the industry. If you're trying to problem solve, if you're trying to advance, and being one of the few women CFOs, is just by virtue of the fact that there aren't very many women in her industry. But she said he really taught her a lot about leadership in general, how to navigate politics and so on and so forth. So she felt that the industry issue wasn't as an impediment, but it was really about his knowledge and experience dealing with being a leader. And what does that mean in good times and in bad?
Very good. Very good. That makes sense. So let me ask Raquel or Daisy this question. And this has to do with how do you continue to grow and improve as a mentor? I don't know if they froze. Daisy, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I wasn't sure. I think maybe it just froze on my end a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that growing as a mentor is, of course,
That means that I have to myself like learn new things. You mentioned AI earlier. That was not a part of my journalism program, but it is stuff that, it is, you see it more and more in media, right? And so it's like ensuring that like I also take those trainings and that I am continuing to learn myself, and so that I can also share that with my mentees. And I think it was Phyllis who said this earlier as well, but you really are learning from one another, right? I learn from my mentees all the time, right? Because again, I I've been in the game for a while. I got my journalism and poli-sci degree a very long time ago, and so the journalism program that my mentees are, graduating from, or look very different from the ones that I graduated from. And so it's important that I continue to do the work, to learn, but that I'm also learning from my mentee, and recognizing that I know what I know, but I don't have all the answers, right? And so this is, while I am here to serve, there's also moments where I can grow as well.
That's right. And then I know you cut out for a little bit. Daisy was actually providing also some insight as to how you can grow and improve as a mentor. So Daisy, if you don't mind repeating that.
yeah, I think I actually heard Raquel touch on it a little bit at the end, and it was about how, the relationship is one that does evolve and you are growing just as much as your mentee is growing. And I think it comes through a lot of lived experiences. And that can be anything from, you finally mastering how to tailor a really great cover letter or resume and being able to pass on that knowledge to someone else, to being able to grow within your career and then having that knowledge that you can then share and be able to divulge in your relationship.
Very good. Very good. Well, with that, I think, I truly, before I forget and we run out of time if we do, I don't see any other questions right this minute, but I really wanted to thank each and every one of you, Raquel, my madrina, Phyllis Barajas, Daisy Maldonado. I want to thank you guys because again, we found each other in a situation that we didn't even know we were mentors and mentees to each other. So that just happened, and it's a true testament to it's kicking off 2025 with the power of mentorship. It really is a testament to it, right? Because we believe in it, we've been part of it, and we have taken benefit from it. So, thank you again for taking the time to be part of this conversation. I hope that our audience, took notes of some of the nuggets, some of the insight you guys share. We all share, and that connect with you guys, as we mentioned earlier through LinkedIn. You guys could connect to any one of the panelists, myself. So please, I encourage you to do so. And thank you for your comments. Thank you for your energy. I see all the comments in the chat. I see so many people. Freddy from the committee, Jackie, many people, refugee, and we're Latino, so we like to give shout out. With that, I also would want to thank Prospanica National for hosting this type of event, organizing the support that the Latina track gets from Prospanica National, Esther, Lorena, and the entire marketing team and everyone is incredible for us to continue to host this type of webinar. A big, big, big thank you to Tomas Savino, the CEO of Prospanica National, who has been a mentor to me, has been a peer to me, as starting in Prospanica as a chapter officer of the Connecticut chapter, and then and that's the power of mentorship. He's also escalated to being the CEO of Prospanica, another true testament. So thank you for your support. I want to end this conversation with sharing a couple of things. I want to say, look, if you want to take advantage, as I have, and some of my committee members have, of an organization that the ladies here mentioned, please join Prospanica, become a member. The professional membership begins at $120. For a student, is like a third of that cost. And by the way, I have no problem with sponsoring students. I mean, we've done that. To join, we do have, the Career Expo. We have the upcoming events, webinars. For example, Entre Amigas webinar on Wednesday, February 19th, which is going to focus on balancing personal relationships and career development. Please do not miss that conversation, because it is hard at times, especially for Latinas. When you are a executive or you're progressing your career, and then you feel like you're not taking care of your home, right? And people make you feel guilty. So that conversation is also important, as important as mentorship. Ladies, thank you so much. If you just want to, 2 minutes to kind of wrap up, one last advice that you want to give. You're welcome, if you want to.
I'm just sorry. I was just going to say I'm very grateful that Prospanica has put this together. I know that it's one of many, but I think this is a really beautiful place to start. Just because, as was mentioned during this discussion, folks feel like they want a mentor but don't know how to seek one out. And so I think this conversation is really, really important, and I'm just grateful to have been a part of this. So thank you.
And I want to congratulate Prospanica for the great work you guys have done for decades. And thank you for the opportunity to participate in this one in particular. And I would agree, as I said earlier, mentorship is so important. And research tells us that mentorship is probably the best way to really help you grow and advance in your career and in your life. You can't separate out the two, let's be honest. And I think what you're doing next month is fabulous. We're doing similar topics, and it's really important. But congratulations to all of you, and thank you for this opportunity. And we're launching our next cohorts in the next month or so. So if you're interested, you can certainly get a hold of us at Conexión, and talk to us more. Thank you again, and great to see everybody.
Yeah, thank you for all the work you do. It's so appreciative, and it's so great to see these kinds of programs existing, and the fruitful benefits that come out of it. So thank you so much for having me and for the community that we have. I will always be so grateful for it.
Well, thank you, everyone. Shout out to Goya, our sponsor, for hosting today's webinar. And I'm very appreciative that all of you joined today. And again, join us on our upcoming webinar on Wednesday, February 19th. Thank you, everyone. Bye.